The dogs refused to go outside. They trembled in the corner of the shed, growling low at something only they could sense. Their owner, a seasoned rancher who had seen every kind of weather and wild animal the Uintah Basin could throw at him, tried coaxing them out. But they wouldn't budge. Not even when he raised his voice, not even when he opened the gate and stepped out into the evening cold alone. There was no wind, no sound, just a strange pressure in the air, like something vast and invisible had settled over the land. And in the distance, on the ridge above the pasture, a faint blue light was hovering. That was the beginning, or rather, it was the moment the family realized something was already terribly wrong. The property was known as Skinwalker Ranch, and for years it had been a place whispered about by locals, tracked by UFO enthusiasts, and feared by the Ute tribe who refused to set foot near it. But it wasn't until the Gorman family moved in during the mid-1990s that the full scope of what happened there came to light. They weren't the superstitious type. Terry and Gwen Gorman bought the place for its grazing potential, a 500-acre plot of remote Utah land with open skies, rugged ridges, and a long irrigation canal that cut through the ranch's heart. From the outside, it was the perfect setting for cattle ranching. But strange things began happening almost immediately. It started with the wolf. On their first day, a massive gray wolf approached them in the open. It was calm, too calm, and walked straight up to them, even letting them pet it. But when it suddenly lunged through the corral bars and clamped its jaws around a calf's snout, they knew something was off. Terry and his son beat it with sticks. He shot it. Nothing worked. Eventually, after multiple bullets, the creature backed off, but it showed no pain. When they tracked it across the field, its paw prints just stopped, mid-stride, as if it had vanished into the air. From that day on, the family kept finding signs they were not alone. Tools vanished and reappeared days later in impossible places. Heavy equipment was found disassembled with bolts laid out like a mechanic's diagram. One day, a freshly dug post hole simply disappeared, dirt and all. Gwen heard voices in languages she couldn't identify whispering in the kitchen. Terry began seeing black shapes out in the field, tall, humanoid figures standing in silence, always just beyond rifle range. And then came the lights. At first, they were distant, floating orange orbs that drifted silently across the treetops. But over time, they came closer. More than once, the family saw blue orbs hovering over their property, crackling with electricity. When the dogs chased one into the woods, the family later found their remains, charred and curled like ash, as if they'd been flash-cooked where they stood. Word spread. And soon, outsiders began taking interest. The National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDS, founded by aerospace magnate Robert Bigelow, struck a deal with the Gormans and took over the ranch. The family stayed on as caretakers. Cameras were installed, observation posts built, scientists moved in, but what they found refused to be measured. Orbs would appear and disappear without triggering sensors. Equipment malfunctioned in patterns that defied logic. Surveillance wires were found ripped out, neatly, with surgical precision. One night, a team watched a glowing oval open up over the field. A large black figure crawled out on all fours, dropped to the ground, and vanished into the dark. It wasn't just strange, it was intelligent, and it did not want to be seen. One researcher described it as a precognitive sentient force. Another, after seeing a shimmering invisible shape approach the cattle pen, left the ranch and never came back. Multiple cows were found mutilated, organs removed with bloodless precision, their bodies untouched by predators. In some cases, the incisions were so clean they looked laser-cut. One cow was found collapsed in the field, its entire body carved open, ribs cracked and spread as if by massive force, but no blood spilled. No tracks nearby, nothing. And always, the same oppressive silence in the air. The Ute people had warned others about the land for generations. According to them, this was Skinwalker territory, haunted by malevolent shapeshifters cursed to roam the desert. Whether one believes in the legend or not, the activity was undeniable. Whatever it wasn't just lights in the sky. It interacted, it adapted, and it instilled something primal in all who experienced it: dread. By the time NIDS concluded its work, they hadn't solved the mystery. They had only deepened it. The camera caught nothing. But the cow was dead. It had been alive minutes earlier, calm, grazing in the sunlight. One of the researchers had turned away just briefly. When he looked back, it was collapsed on its side, no signs of a struggle, no wounds, no noise, and the camera trained on the field had stopped recording, just static, for precisely the same window of time when whatever happened, happened. This was the pattern. Something was there, but it refused to be documented. The NIDS team remained at Skinwalker Ranch for years. They brought in new equipment, new observers, new methods. They witnessed the phenomena. They felt it. They even recorded some of it. But never in a way that gave them control. It was like trying to trap smoke with your hands. The more they tried to observe it, the more it slipped between the cracks. Terry Gorman, the rancher, grew increasingly agitated. His cattle, prized animals, continued to die in unexplainable ways. One cow was found wedged inside a tiny trailer with no sign of how it had been moved. Another vanished entirely, its hoofprints leading into a field and stopping mid-stride. No blood, no struggle, just absence. The tension on the ranch grew unbearable. At night, lights danced along the ridge. Dogs barked at things no one could see. Gwen heard footsteps in the house. Once, she opened a cabinet to find every item rearranged, perfectly stacked in ways she hadn't placed. Terry began patrolling with a rifle, but no matter how fast he ran, how carefully he watched, the events always stayed a step ahead. The NIDS scientists tried to remain clinical, but privately, they admitted it. Something on the ranch was aware of them, watching them, reacting to their presence. It wasn't just a place of high strangeness, it was responsive. If they focused their monitoring on the west field, activity would spike at the east gate. If they tried to document lights, the lights would vanish, only to return when the cameras were turned off. Eventually, after years of investigation, NIDS released a public statement. They had found no evidence of hoaxes. They had recorded unexplainable electromagnetic disturbances, infrared anomalies, and biological effects on both humans and animals. But no conclusions, no explanation, just phenomena without pattern. Intelligent, evasive, and deeply disturbing. The Gorman family finally sold the ranch. They couldn't take it anymore. The buyer, Robert Bigelow, the same man behind the NIDS study. His team continued investigations for a time under tighter secrecy. Eventually, even they pulled back. Years later, the ranch was sold again, this time to a real estate mogul who rebranded it under a new name and allowed limited media access. The legends didn't die. If anything, they grew louder. Today, Skinwalker Ranch is one of the most studied paranormal sites in the world. Teams have used everything from thermal drones to radiation monitors, seismographs, and EM field detectors. The results remain the same: mysterious lights, sudden illnesses, power disruptions, animal deaths, even sightings of creatures, bipedal and silent, emerging from glowing rips in the sky. What's happening there isn't confined to a single theory. Some say it's government testing gone wrong. Others believe it's extraterrestrial, or interdimensional, or ancient. But all who've spent time there agree on one thing: the ranch watches back. And it never lets you leave unchanged. Even those who've left the property entirely, scientists, journalists, visitors, report nightmares, health issues, and uncanny coincidences long after returning home. Whatever the source, the effect is lasting. Because Skinwalker Ranch is not just a location, it is an intelligence, and it doesn't want to be explained. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. If you enjoyed this true story, join us next time, if you dare.